Alright, so I don't really need to do introductions because you all know me in the room now. But here's the thing. So some of you guys that have me as friends on Facebook, you guys already kind of know what I'm talking about, what I'm going to talk about today. But I just kind of want to explain what I'm talking about. See, what I'm going to talk about today is how great is our God. And the reason why this even came up to my mind was because I just recently came back from a mission trip to Peru. This is my second time going to Peru, and it was really awesome. But it was my first time ever being on a Sunday service with them. So I was sitting down and I was hearing them worship and I was hearing them praise God. And this is all in Spanish, but they were all praising God. And there was a song that came up that said "Cuán grande es mi Dios," which translates basically to "How great is our God." And so they were singing this song, and I wasn't really thinking of it then, but then it was after. Someone that was on the team with me, he was like, you know, how awesome is our God, that the same God that we worship in America is the same God that's being worshipped all over the world on the same day. And I really thought about it, and I was like, how great is our God? And so as God was revealing this to me, he told me, he said, there's reasons why this is important. It's reasons why it's important to know how great I am, because here's the thing. If we do not believe God is great, we have no reason to serve Him. Really think about that for a minute, because think about everyone in your life. If you consider them as leaders, it's because there's something that they can do that's better than what you can do. You're not going to follow someone that you feel like is not greater than you in whatever way, shape, or form. I mean, you're not going to sit there and you're on the soccer team, right? So what if they made the team captain someone that just started playing yesterday? You'd be mad. You'd be like, okay, what are you doing? You wouldn't really want to follow a guy that you know doesn't know what he's doing. You don't want to follow someone that is less skilled than you. You don't want to follow someone that is not as great as you. And it's the same with God. If we don't believe that God is great, then we'll lose every ounce of passion in serving Him. Second thing is, if we don't believe that He's great, we don't want to tell anyone about Him. Because it's just like, to me, it's like me, I watch a lot of Netflix, alright? So I'm sitting here, I'm watching a TV show, and I really like the show. Because I really like the show, I'm going to tell everyone else about it. I'm going to be like, yo, y'all need to watch Legends of Tomorrow, okay? Because that's some quality TV right there. You know, I'm going to tell you about it because I like it. But I'm not going to tell you about something that I was like, bruh, I barely even made it through. Like, you know, I'm not going to give examples right now because, you know, this ain't the time for that. This ain't the time to be shooting people down like that. But, man, there's some terrible shows out there that aren't even good. And I'm not going to tell anyone about them because they're just not good enough. But here's the other thing. If you don't think that God is great, you have nothing to look forward to. Everything in our lives, we want something that we can look forward to. And you guys got to understand that as Christians, we have to believe that there's going to be a day where we are going to be in God's presence forever. And if we don't think that God is great, then there's no real reason why we're doing this. No real reason to hold on if we don't think that God is great. Now, a lot of the times God gives me like these pictures, but like then He'll give me the scripture later. And so the scripture that God had kind of brought to my mind was in Luke 11:29. So if you guys can turn to that in your Bibles and follow along with me. I'm going to read all the way down to verse 32. And it says, as the crowds increased, Jesus said, this is a wicked generation. It asks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. For as Jonah was a sign to the Ninevites, so also will the Son of Man be to this generation. The queen of the south will rise at the judgment with the people of this generation and condemn them. For she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom, and now something greater than Solomon is here. the men of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now something greater than Jonah is here. Understand this. When Jesus is talking about this, he's talking about the sign of Jonah, when he's talking about all of these things, you have to understand the story behind it. First off, everyone was sitting here asking Jesus. They're just like, I need to see signs, because you're trying to say that you are the Messiah. You're trying to say that you are God. But if you truly are God, then we need to see signs. We need to know that you are God. And he's like, dude, I don't need to show you any more signs. I've already made blind people see. I've made lame people walk. And you're trying to tell me that you want to see more signs. You want to see more things. And he's like, you know what? Here's the sign that you need. You need the sign of Jonah. And the story of Jonah is kind of interesting, because some of us that have been in church for a while, we've heard the story of Jonah. All right? Basically, God tells Jonah, hey, I want you to speak to this place, in this place called Nineveh. And Jonah's like, nah, I ain't doing that. So he tries to go off in his own direction and do his own thing. And God's just like, and so God is just like, okay, you don't want to listen? So he makes this whole storm happen while he's on the water. And then Jonah decides, he's like, well, I'm the reason why this storm is happening. So he threw himself into the water. And then this big old fish swallows him. He's in there for 3 days. And he's like, dude, what's going on? Well, I mean, he wasn't like, what's going on? Because he knew exactly why he was in there. But, and so, like, this is all going on. And then the funny thing is about Jonah is he never actually does what God has told him to do because he wants to do it. He does it because he just felt like he had to. And so he reluctantly decides, okay, I'm going to go preach to the people of Nineveh. And this is what he says. This is his whole sermon. He comes into Nineveh and he says, 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. That's it. Like, he says nothing else. He doesn't tell them who's going to overthrow them. He doesn't tell them what they did wrong. He doesn't tell them what they had to do to be able to fix it. He just says, in 40 days, Nineveh shall be overthrown. Like, that is not a sermon. Anyone that knows anything, that's not you teaching anyone. And it is because he did not want to tell them about who God was. And see, but it was because of what happened, because what had happened after that was these people that were doing terrible things and doing terrible things to the people of Israel, they ended up repenting. They ended up changing of their ways. And he didn't want that to happen because he didn't think that they deserved God. And the reason why that is so significant is because of this. Because God was so great that even through a 7-word sermon that really didn't have much meat to it, even through that, he was able to speak. And because people saw the greatness of God, they decided, you know what, I'm going to change around and I'm going to stop doing the things that I've been doing. But here's the second part of what he said. He was talking about the queen of the south coming to see Solomon's wisdom. Now, if anyone knows, King Solomon was the wisest man that ever be talked about in the Bible. He's the wisest man that we know. And so he had all of this wisdom that was given to him by God, but people around in the nations surrounding, they were just like, dude, you are so great, dude, your wisdom is so great, I've got to come to see that. But see, all of his wisdom pointed back to God. All of his wisdom pointed back to the awesomeness of our God and the greatness of our God. And because the greatness of his wisdom and the greatness of God's wisdom, everyone around them was able to look at it and be able to see it and be able to know that this is something different. So here's the thing I just kind of want to tell you is that, like, a lot of us might ask, why is God so great? Well, the first thing is, he has the power to change wicked hearts. This is what we're talking about in the story of Jonah, because the Ninevites were terrible people. Don't get me wrong, like, they're terrible people. But God had the power to be able to change them around, and not because Jonah said these awesome words and preached like this great sermon or had this great worship. No, he was barely even wanting to do it. But God is able to do things through anything because God has that much power. And see, that's important for us to know because especially if you're an introvert and God is saying, I need you to tell the whole world about my name. You're just like, I don't know. I don't do this whole talking thing. Like, I don't know. Me talking aren't good friends. And so, like, if you rely on God's power, He can be able to change people's hearts around you, but to change the hearts around of your friends and your family that don't believe. But just because I hear the bell, I'm going to speed up. But here's the last two things. His wisdom surpasses all earthly wisdom. God is great because there's nobody that knows more than God. There's no one that has a better understanding of all of the world than God. And the moment that we sit here, we remember that God is great and that God can do things that seem impossible. That is the moment that things change. Last thing I want you to know is He's great because His love never fails. Because not like our love that's imperfect and not like our love that doesn't last, God's love lasts. And God has unending love. And this is the thing that we need to remember, and this is the thing that's going to bring people in, is when we notice that God is great. So how do we notice that in our lives? Is just very quickly, the way that we notice that in our lives is by noticing every day that there's something great that God is doing. Notice that He's done something great and recognize that He is great every day. So I'm just going to bring us back into a prayer, but I just want you guys to think about that today. How great is our God? All right. Lord, thank you for this message that you brought today. I pray that we can be able to take that everywhere that we go and that we can remember that your greatness surpasses anything. That you are greater than everything, that you can do anything. And that as long as we believe and as long as we follow in you, we can see amazing things happen in the school, in our home, in our community in general. And Jesus, for everything I pray. Amen.